You know, a massive disaster rarely starts with a bang. A lot of the time, it's just a quiet drift. Think about a ship that's only 1 degree off course. I mean, at first, it looks totally fine. But over hundreds and hundreds of miles, it ends up in a completely different and maybe a really dangerous place. Well, there's this ancient text, the Book of Judges, that captures this exact idea. Not with a ship, but with an entire nation. Okay, let's dive into this.
This line gets repeated over and over again in the book, and it's really the haunting theme of our explainer today. Now, what's so fascinating about this is what it doesn't say. It doesn't say there was no religion or no priests or that people weren't talking about God. The diagnosis is incredibly specific. There was no king, no central recognized authority. And when that's missing, everything starts to shift in these subtle but really profound ways. So we're going to zoom in and look at the story of just one group, the tribe of Dan. And we're not going to look at it as just some ancient history, but as this incredible case study in how a people can completely reorganize their lives when there's no central guiding principle holding them together. And this is the absolute key right here. The absence of a king doesn't create some kind of belief vacuum. What it creates is a crisis of authority. Spirituality doesn't just vanish. Instead, people start tailoring it to fit their own personal convenience, their own self-direction. It's no longer anchored to some external truth. It's the beginning of an a la carte faith, one that's assembled for comfort, not for conviction. Okay, so the story kicks off with the tribe of Dan seeking an inheritance for itself. That little phrase, for itself, that's everything. It's the starting pistol for this self-directed journey, one that's based on their own criteria and their own sense of what's best for them.
Now, this slide just lays out the choice they made perfectly. God had already given them territory. The problem? It was hard. It was going to require courage and trust and a real fight. But instead of leaning into that challenge, they decided to scout for an easier option, a place that felt, more manageable and more comfortable. This is that first step in the drift, choosing comfort over their calling.
On their journey, they do something that looks super spiritual. They ask a priest to inquire of God for them. But let's be honest, they weren't really asking for guidance. They were looking for a rubber stamp. This is negotiation, not worship. It's that moment when we approach a higher authority, not to be corrected, but just to get confirmation for the plan we've already decided on.
And man, this brings the story right into our own lives, doesn't it? It's such a powerful question to ask ourselves whenever we're tempted to change course. Is this a genuine release from a difficult task, or am I just looking for an escape route because I got uncomfortable with the assignment I was given?
All right, so let's follow this quiet drift to the next stage. See, once you've chosen your own self-directed strategy, you often need a belief system to justify it. The Danites are about to go from a do-it-yourself plan to a do-it-yourself religion.
This slide gives us a really clear roadmap of their journey. We've already seen step 1, the self-directed strategy. Now we're deep into step 2, authorizing a religion to match. And as we're about to see, that will inevitably lead to step 3, where they have to protect their new compromise at all costs. So the scouts find this private shrine, a whole religious setup with idols, sacred objects, and even a hired priest. It's already a compromise, a totally customized form of worship. And instead of recognizing it as wrong, their immediate reaction is just pure pragmatism. They think, hey, this could work for us. Let's just steal it. So when the priest objects to them looting the shrine, they don't argue about theology. Oh no. They offer him a promotion. As you can see here, it's a pretty tempting choice. He can stay a private chaplain to one little family, or he can become the spiritual leader for an entire tribe of Israel. It's that classic test of integrity versus opportunity. So, what does he choose?
And there it is, the punchline. The text tells us his heart was glad, not because truth was being upheld, but because his platform was expanding. He chose personal advancement and influence over being faithful to his calling.
So the really crucial point here is how their actions totally transformed the very nature of worship. It wasn't about conforming to an absolute truth anymore. It became this convenient, modular system, a set of beliefs and practices that you could just pick up, move, and scale to fit the needs of the consumer. It was the ultimate customized spirituality.
And this just forces us to look at our own motivations, doesn't it? When we pray or seek guidance, what is our real posture? Are we just looking for a divine signature on our own blueprints? Or are we genuinely surrendering our plans to a higher authority, totally open to correction and redirection?
Okay, now we enter the final and frankly the ugliest stage of this drift. A compromise, once it's established, has to be protected. And what started as just a convenient choice is about to be defended with threats and with violence.
The original owner of the shrine, this guy named Micah, he catches up to them, and his cry is just tragic. He says, "You've taken my handmade gods. What else do I have?" His statement just reveals the utter emptiness of a faith you construct for yourself. When it's gone, you're literally left with nothing. And just look at the Danites' response. There's no debate, no remorse, just a cold, hard threat. Be quiet or we will kill you and your entire family. This is what happens when a compromise is challenged. It doesn't engage in a dialogue. It resorts to intimidation to protect itself.
Their journey ends at Laish, a city that's described as peaceful and unsuspecting. They attack it, they burn it to the ground, and then they rebuild it and name it after themselves. The success of their mission becomes its own justification. I mean, they got what they wanted, so in their eyes, their actions must have been right. And this turns the mirror right back on us again. Are there systems or habits or compromises in our own lives or organizations that we defend simply because they work for us, even if they were built on a really faulty foundation? Are we protecting things that really ought to be dismantled?
And this brings us to the really sobering conclusion of the story. A quiet drift doesn't just affect one person or one decision. It has long-term, generational consequences. This timeline is staggering when you lay it out. Just let that sink in. It all started with a simple, pragmatic decision to find an easier life. But that one choice led to theft, which led to violence, which then became an institution. Their customized religion lasted for centuries, right up until the nation was sent into exile. A short-term compromise became a permanent, generational cancer. So after watching this whole story unfold, we are brought right back to the root cause. The issue was never a bad military strategy or a dispute over land. All of these destructive symptoms, the self-direction, the customized religion, the violence, all of it stemmed from a single core problem, a crisis of kingship.
And so we end exactly where we began, with this haunting refrain. It's the book's final diagnosis. When there is no recognized, surrendered to authority, everyone, even well-meaning and religious people, will simply end up doing what is right in their own eyes. And that is a quiet drift straight into chaos.
And this leaves us with one final piercing question to consider. In our lives, our work, our beliefs, what is our true posture? Are we just looking for a stamp of approval on our own plans, or are we truly open to being corrected and guided and ruled by an authority outside of ourselves? The answer to that question determines which direction we're drifting.